Man, oh man, what a day. What a great day today. What a move this afternoon. Boy, this melt up just keeps going and going and going. I know a lot of you guys made some pretty good money on that big correction off the high on the Nasdaq, so well done on that. But let's get back to work tonight. We have a lot to cover in a very important video tonight. Everything is bullish across the board, going into big earnings reports tomorrow. Now, I think everybody is waiting for a pullback right now, aren't we? Everyone's waiting for a pullback. Pullbacks at first glance, pullbacks seem pretty easy. They seem pretty easy, but I think most of us know that timing the best entries on a pullback can be a little bit more difficult than you think at first. So not to worry though, I'm going to teach you guys a really simple trick that we use in our trade room to find the best pullback entries whenever we see a big run like this. So I'm going to cover my favorite trades, definitely some pullback entries for tomorrow, and I'll teach you guys a little simple trick that we don't miss the next good trade setting up here for tomorrow. We got some big earnings coming tomorrow as well. Earnings usually mean consolidation, some messy market, so I definitely want to put a game plan together so you're ready to capitalize on earnings from Tesla and Netflix tomorrow. So we have a lot to cover in a very important video tonight. I'm going to go over all my favorite trades in the video here this evening. Now, before we jump in and get the game plan going tonight, I'm excited just thinking about it here tonight. Before we get started though, make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss tomorrow night's video. And if you enjoy this stuff, if you like these videos, do me a favor, will you? Hit that like button for me. Give me a shout out, give me a holler. I still haven't heard from you down in the comments section. I'm kidding with you. Let's get the video going. Enough of the intro, Joe. Let's get ready for Wednesday though. Where are the best trades setting up for what should be a very, very busy and exciting day tomorrow in our trade room? Starting off tonight on the 60-minute chart on the S&P and SPY, the Nasdaq, and the QQQs. I like to use the 60-minute chart to help me plan my trades the following day. Later on in the video tonight, I'm going to drill down to some faster tick charts. We'll talk about entry setups on the tick charts later on in the video. So we're going to cover all the trades setting up a bit later on. The 60 minutes right now, you can easily see everything is bullish, right? Big, bold moves right now on the Nasdaq and the S&P. Everybody's waiting for a pullback, right? Everyone's waiting for a pullback right now. And again, I'm going to teach you guys a really simple trick to identify where the best pullback entries are probably going to be for tomorrow. We're going to cover that here in a moment. And again, with big corporate earnings from Tesla and Netflix, I want to give you guys a game plan on that as well. So now, before we talk about my favorite pullback entries for tomorrow here, let's make sure we all get on the same page here, because we do have some important stuff. Two things that you want to be aware of for tomorrow. First of all, housing starts and permits at 8:30 Eastern time. That is pretty much the only major news we have during the trading session tomorrow for the S&P, the Emini, and the Nasdaq for tomorrow. The big thing, though, of course, is tomorrow afternoon. We, of course, have what really is the first batch of big earnings. Tesla and Netflix, of course, are going to be headlining those earnings after the close tomorrow afternoon. Goldman Sachs definitely seems like a big deal tomorrow before the open, but they already kind of warned us. They warned us they kind of missed their numbers. So I don't think that will surprise anybody, but we definitely have to be aware that tomorrow, and this is where we have to think about this, as we go into tomorrow, certainly the Nasdaq has potential to consolidate ahead of those big earnings coming out after the close. So we definitely want to talk about the game plan if we consolidate into ranges tomorrow on the Nasdaq, but definitely be aware of that. And that pretty much is the only major earnings we have this week, and then we'll kick the can down the road to next week. Next week is peak week when it comes to earnings. We have a lot to talk about next week, so we're just getting this month of July warmed up. So be aware of that. Housing starts tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern time, but I doubt that will be as big of an impact as the big earnings from Netflix and Tesla tomorrow after the close. Back to our charts, right? Back to our charts. The money is made, of course, on the charts here. And I'm going to go over all my favorite trades right now on the S&P and the Nasdaq. If you like making money, I would definitely make sure you watch all the way to the end of this video. Now, I mentioned earlier the 60-minute chart, bullish market right now. Everyone's waiting for a pullback. That's the general idea, right? Anytime we see a strong move in one direction, We know we're looking for that nice deep pullback to allow buyers to buy the dip, right? Buy low. And anytime we see a strong move in one direction, we expect to get a pullback and a retest of that high. And so tonight we'll talk about how to buy the dip. I also want to talk about how to short off the high here as well. So if any of you guys are trying to pick some tops in this sucker right now ahead of earnings, we'll talk about how to buy the dip and short during that dip as well. I will not let you down on the game plan here for tomorrow. Let's drill down now to our tick chart. Now, I like to use tick charts in our trade room. Tick charts they make everything easier. This is a 7,000 tick chart. You can see all the time frames in the upper left-hand corner. And if you're watching for the first time right now, that is the 21 EMA. It's not the only indicator we use in our trade room, but it's the one indicator that you really want to use. It helps us find some great winning trades in our trade room with our members. Now, what's the most important factor we're seeing right now? It's a strong bull move. Right? Anytime we see a strong move in one direction, we expect a pullback and a retest of that high. It's a pretty large move going higher, right? This went 300% off of that initial jump off the moving average. It's a big move going higher. And anytime we see a really big move in one direction, I mentioned earlier, I would give you a trick to finding my favorite pullback entries. It's very simple. Once we get underneath the moving average, I start looking for what I call a two-legged pullback, or a 1, 2, 3 move in our trade room. 1, 2, and 3. Now, these are always a bit difficult to predict ahead of time, right? Because we don't exactly have all the information yet. But here's what you want to be thinking about. You want to get below the 21 moving average, the 21 EMA, and then think about that first leg and the second leg are usually very symmetrical. Usually this will go a little bit further than a measured move, right? We talk about measured moves a lot in our free trading classes, right? So imagine now we get underneath that moving average, we pull back, and we try to go lower. Again, we don't have enough information yet, but as long as you understand the basic principles of it, and again, in the free trading classes, we talk about measured moves, right? One leg off that high, 2 legs off that high. And again, it will usually be somewhere down just below that area. All right. We'll be looking for that here for tomorrow. Now, that only gives us a small piece of the puzzle, right? That really only tells us where to begin looking for the entry. So once I have that measured move off the high, that's the support area. Now, how do we time the entry? Well, this is kind of the easy part. In my free trading classes, I talk about a pattern called a failure pattern, right? Failure patterns are pretty simple. In a bull market like this, we know we're expecting a pullback and a retest of that high, right? Well, hopefully we can get some bears coming in, and hopefully we can get those bears to start shorting this thing into some of these areas of support. Again, think about that measured move. It'll be a little bit below that. I got a rising support trend line, channel low. Okay, so once I see those bears start to short this, okay, now remember, this is a 7,000 tick chart. Tomorrow we'll drill down to like a 1,500 tick chart, right? This will feel very bearish on those faster time frames tomorrow in the trade room. And hopefully we'll get some bears roped in here, get them to try a couple times, and we can use their stops, right? We can use their pain, as my first trading coach would always say. Use their stops, use their pain, and a lot of times what happens in these situations is once the market begins to kind of rip and run higher, all the FOMO kicks in, and we can look for what's called a trap setup, right? It's basically a bear. It's basically a bear trap, right? In this example, all right. So again, think about the scenario right now. Strong run up, says pull back and a retest. Big move up. So expect a relatively deep correction here. I'm going to talk about some variations of that in a moment. Don't you worry. Trap those bears in. Use my failure pattern like you guys are learning in the free trading course. And then as we begin to pop higher here, where does the market want to go? It wants to take out that high, right? Now, you guys know this already. If you've taken my classes or you're a student of mine right now, you know this. What is the entry setup we want to use when we don't want to buy high? It's a trap, right? It's a trap. Higher high in price, trap below that low. That failure into trap combination literally just like I teach it in the free trading class, which reminds me, I'm going to be talking a lot about failures and traps here throughout the video tonight. I want to teach you guys these entry patterns if you haven't done so already. If you're not making consistent money right now, the markets are way too good not to be doing well right now. If you're not making consistent money each week, I'll put a link up there for you in the upper right-hand corner for my free trading classes. Grab that link and take that free trading course, because the strategy you'll learn in that video series will show you a simple trick we use in our trade room every morning to know where the best winning trades are likely to be that day. And most importantly, I will teach you my 4 favorite entry patterns to help you start making money on your own. If you're missing too many good trades, if you're taking the wrong trades right now, grab that link that popped up there and take that free course. You can thank me later. I have a lot of people right now doing great with that free class on the website. And also, too, don't forget, I'm going to put all the important links. If you can't grab that pop-up link, I'll put all the important links down the description of the YouTube video. So definitely grab that if you need to down in the description. Okay, so now we know that 2-legged pullback, or my trade room, we call these 1, 2, 3 moves, right, to find that area. Now, later on in the video, I want to talk about how to short this thing. Okay, I'm going to make you wait for that one though, right? So later on in the video, we'll talk about how we short during this pullback, because it definitely is an option right now. We'll talk about why we're going to be careful on that in a moment. Let's do some different variations of this. All right. So we talked about that deep pullback, roping the bears, right, and trap back up again. We talked about that a moment ago, right? Now, let's do some different scenarios here. For example, we may not get that deep pullback, right? This is a very strong bull trend right now. We may only get as far as this 79.5 here on the S&P, right? Over on the Nasdaq. We might not get that deep of a pullback on the Nasdaq. What if we don't get that really deep 2-legged correction? How would I buy it, for example? What if all we get is a strong run down? How would I buy this if I don't see that 2-legged correction like I mentioned before? Well, what's the concern here? The concern is I don't want to buy too high. I want to buy nice and low. And so if I want to buy nice and low, if I don't want to buy high, I need to get that trap. Okay, in my trade room, we're always saying shallow pullback traps, shallow pullback traps. That should be literally embedded in your brain when you're trading. If I get a nice deep 2-legged pullback, nice and low, 1, 2, right, back up, I can be a lot more aggressive in that situation because I'm not buying very high. But if I buy relatively high, I have to use what's called a bear trap. This will wrap together on a shallow pullback. This will wrap together both that failure, bears try once, bears try twice, along with that trap setup that I mentioned a few moments ago. So if all we get is a shallow pullback to the low of this channel coming in here, again, not my favorite trade for tomorrow, but I don't make the rules, right? I have to take whatever the market gives me. So I'm going to keep an eye on that for that other variation, a second variation of this. Now, let's talk about one more variation. What if this thing was to tank, really run lower? And although I love the idea of the bears once, the bears twice, and buying into those stop losses, what if we don't get it? What if the market V-bottoms off of that low, right? This move the last week or so has been red hot. There might be so many buyers down here who are willing to buy right into, right? The big money buyers may come in and they may gobble that whole thing up. So what do we do in that situation? What do we do in these V-bottom situations here? What we do is, oftentimes V-bottoms will do this. So pay attention here. It'll pop back up and begin to grind higher, okay? If it pops up and starts grinding higher, very easy. Watch closely. Draw a trend line off the highs. Take that trend line, copy it, and paste it down to that low. And then what do I say? Look left, find those prior swings, and you want the first test off the low of that channel. right? We call this first test is the best test in our trade room, in our free trading classes. So if we do V bottom off the low here, promise me one thing. You will not listen to that little voice in your head that says, get in, because on these, what happens a lot of times is as it starts running higher, right, that voice in our head says, come on, dummy, you're missing this thing, get in. And what's going to happen is the minute you jump in, you know the markets have a sick sense of humor like this. Once you jump in, that's the minute they're going to start pulling back. And of course, you'll have your tight stop on there, right? Like most traders do. It'll stop you out, and then all the pros will come in, right? And once you're getting out, right, it'll rip right higher. Because again, strong run, they're trying to go back up and retest that high. That is another variation of this that you want to keep in mind. Want to do one more? One more variation, and then we'll talk about the best ways to short this market. And later on in the video, we'll talk about the game plan if we consolidate ahead of the Netflix and the Tesla earnings here for tomorrow. Here's one more scenario that you want to be aware of, and this one is probably, it might be the most desirable. If you're a student of mine, you know how much I love these. So again, we're going to look for that nice, right, that nice deep correction, get that two-legged correction, that 1, 2, 3 move, a little bit, right, a little bit further usually from that measured move. Now, what happens a lot of times is when you get these real strong corrections like this, all of this momentum going lower now, it gives the bears a lot more ammunition, right? It gives them a lot more strength. And so sometimes the bears will come in, they'll try once, they'll try twice, and they'll actually retest that low, right? We won't actually get the reversal back up off of that low. This is even better, right? Because what happens in these situations is professionals are going to come in and sell high. And then once it retests those lows, those same people who sold high right there, they're going to start taking their profit at that low. Now, in come all the inexperienced traders who all they see is that strong shot lower. I know this because I made this mistake a lot when I was a new trader almost 20 years ago. At this point now, get those bears to try a couple times. Remember, who is selling down here? Rookies. These are not experienced traders, right? Experienced traders, they know better than selling at support in an overall bull market right now. But hopefully, they're not watching my videos here. Hopefully, those bears will come in, they'll dig their own grave, and we can use their stops, we can use their pain for a failure pattern, right, which you guys are learning in the free trading classes. Now remember, as this thing starts to roll higher, what do we want? We want to find that bear trap, or at least an entry pattern to buy as low as possible as we're trying to go back up and take out that high. All right, so now again, we get that two-legged correction, right? It overshoots the measured move by a pretty good margin, very common there. The bears try and they successfully retest that low. Then in come the rookies, right? In they come in, they try selling short. We then pinpoint their stops for the reversal. And one trick I like to use in the trade room is I draw a trend line off those highs. I bring it down off that low, and that's an easy way to kind of time the entry there, right, off of that low. And the objective, of course, right, is to go up and retest that high here. All right, guys, those are what? My favorite, as well as 3 different variations of this on the pullback. Now, I want to talk about 2 more things. One, what if we go sideways here overnight? But more important, no, even more, that's an easy one. That's easy, right? More importantly, what if we race lower and then go sideways down here? Okay, this could be a big challenge for a lot of people tomorrow if we go sideways after a big correction. Learn to trade that scenario, and you're almost unstoppable in the markets. I'm going to talk about that more here in a moment. But first, how do we short this thing off the high? Well, first of all, disclaimer, warning, anytime we see a very strong run like this, the odds are much better to wait for the pullback and retest the high. So if we are going to short off a top like this, remember in last night's video, we talked about how after we get that retest, right? After we retest, then the odds of that bull trap are much better, right? Nasdaq was a great example of that here today. S&P, right? Not so much. However, right, so we want to be careful now on that short. The only safe way for us to be short in this thing right now is to use a bull trap. We have to use a trap pattern, and in my opinion, if this is me taking this trade, this is a half size position. It's a third of the position, right? This should not be in the category. These should not, in my opinion, these should not be our favorite trades, right? These are going to be lower probability trades here. So it's a half size position. It's a quarter size position. And again, we're trying to now look how this pattern sets up, right? It's going to be lower lows in price and that trap high, right, above that high. The reason why you need that trap high is because you need to be in the money as soon as it retests that low, because what's going to happen? Once we get down here, guess what? In come the rookie sellers, right? And bam, right back up. Buyers are going to come in and try to gobble that thing up and retest that high. All right. So again, the rule of thumb on a short in this scenario, remember, this is not the same situation we found ourselves in last night where we had already gone back and retested. Once we retest, then that short off the top is a lot better odds, right? This one, not so much. Okay. But again, if we do it, small size position and a bull trap to make sure we're selling as high as we possibly can. That way we don't get trapped in down here when the bears come in, fail, and the buyers rip this thing back higher here. Okay, so now we've covered how to short off the high. Again, smaller size, pick your spots wisely, and a number of variations here to buy the pullback as we go here right now. Now, let's talk about those ranges. Okay, let's talk about ranges. How about some NASDAQ? Now, I haven't given a lot of love to the NASDAQ here tonight, but it's pretty much the same thing, right? NASDAQ is ultimately the same exact scenario as the S&P. We have a very, very convincing bull market right now. I would imagine everyone is waiting for a pullback, and hopefully we'll get that nice two-legged pullback, that correction we talked about earlier on the S&P. Now, when I go to my tick chart, right, this is a 5,000 tick chart now on the NQ or the QQQ. When we look at the NASDAQ, what's the first thing that stands out right away? What's the first thing you see right away? Look at the size of that first leg getting below the moving average. Remember what I said earlier, right? Most of the time when you get these corrections like this, it's going to get below the moving average, pull back, go to a measured move, and it will usually be just a little bit, it usually will go a little bit below, in this case, further or exceed that measured move. So right off the bat here, we can see, look at how big that first leg is. So this keeps going lower. This could really turn into a very large correction there on the NASDAQ. So just be aware, that's one thing that stands out right away when I see this. At the same time, too, I got that channel off those highs, right? Bring it down off that low. Would anybody be surprised if all we got was a test of that channel? The bears come in, right? They're trying to short this thing, right? But again, it's a strong run up. We have to anticipate a retest of that high. That's the best probability on the chart here right now. Again, trap pattern, right? Shallow pullback trap. One try for the bears, two try for the bears. We want to buy as low as we can. Why? Right, because we're buying relatively high. How do I know? How do I know we're buying relatively high? Because again, most of the time, and tomorrow might be different, but most of the time, when you get a big move like this, a two-legged correction that exceeds that measured move is most likely. So if all we get is this little tiny, right, this big leg here, we got to think that's probably a little bit too high than comfortable, and expecting that next leg lower, let's make sure we trap those bears in, right, and CYA, right, cover our you-know-whats, and make sure we can get those bears trapped in to squeeze them in back up to retest the high. Now, we've talked about this before, okay? Let's cover ranges now, okay? Because this could change the game for you. This could change the game for you. So let's say, for example, we see that two-legged move down, and this thing just gets stuck down here. right? It could easily happen. We got major support. Again, we got big earnings here tomorrow. I would assume the Nasdaq is more likely than the S&P for tomorrow to consolidate, but who knows, right? Who knows? The markets are crazy. We never know what's going to happen each day, right? All we do is play the odds. So what I want to think about here is if we end up running lower and we start consolidating here into a trading range. Now, if you're a student of mine, if you're in my trade room, you're probably laughing right now because you know what I'm going to say on this. These are one of my favorite types of trades. Now, let's think about the situation we're in right now. It's a bullish market overall. Okay, this range does not change anything about that. It's an overall bull market. It's a hell of a strong move, and we are eventually anticipating a retest of that high. Okay, those conditions have not changed. Now, if you're taking my free trading classes, you know what's a range. A range is a magnet, right? Ranges are balanced. So what do you think if the range is a magnet and I want to be a buyer because I know I'm looking for that retest of the high? Where do you think the best entry to make money in a situation like this is? Is it going higher? No, right? It's not, because the range below you is the magnet, right? You want to see a fake out breakout off of that low. One of my favorite trades. I love it when I have a bull market into a bearish range. What'll happen is it'll shoot lower. The bears down here, the rookies down here are going to go, see, I told you, we're reversing. I knew it. They're going to get in, and you've got them right where you want them, right? You get them right where you want them. These are one of those scenarios where, as one of my first mentors like 20 years ago would say, one of those scenarios where everyone's a buyer down here, right? Why do I say that? Because it's a dip buy, right? It's a big, strong move up. It's a beautiful dip buy. The range above us is a magnet. And when the bears get stopped out, what happens to them? They have to buy their way out. There's no other way around it, right? They have to buy their way out. That's why these situations where everyone's a buyer, right? Everyone's a buyer. The buyers are buying low automatically right now because of the overall, right, 60-minute bull trend. And when the bears get knocked out, that's where they become buyers as well. These can really, really smoke. They really can. Oftentimes, what happens on these is they'll end up trapping in these bears. It'll begin to jump, it'll roll, right? And as it jumps going higher, bingo, find that new channel off the highs, right? Bring it down off that low, and we're going out and we're buying those first tests off the low of that trading range, right? Now, I'm keeping it simple, okay? I'm keeping it simple right now. It could be a trap, it could be a failure, it could be a pullback combination, okay? I just want to find that new channel and don't miss that first test. So I really hope we get this tomorrow, right? I hope we do sink lower into a trading range, head fake off that low, trap in those rookies, right, who are a horrible place to be selling, use their stops as cannon fodder and rip that thing running higher. And then hopefully it doesn't just go right back to that high, because that's where it wants to go, right? Hopefully it'll pop up, grind higher, give us the structure we need to go find that channel, and then bam, one of our entry patterns right off of that low. That would be a beautiful setup here for tomorrow. And then let's face it, right? Let's face it. The easy one is, let's say we get that shallow pullback, 1, 2, that bear trap going higher, or the two-legged pullback, whatever it is. Let's say we get that pullback, we go back and retest the high, right? And then we start going sideways up here. It doesn't seem as likely. But I don't know, right? I have no idea what these markets are going to do tomorrow. All I know is I'm going to put a game plan together. So one of these setups is going to happen tomorrow, most likely, right? Most likely, and I'll be ready for it, and hopefully so will you as well. Now, if we end up pulling back, right, and then going higher, or getting back up into a bullish range, okay, If we end up in a bull range, like I said earlier, these are pretty easy, okay? In a bull trading range, okay, we look for one of my favorite patterns is you find levels of support, right? Levels of support. Let me finish up my drawing here, right? That's a bull trading range. Bob Ross would be disappointed in me here this evening. Anyways, so you find support, right? You find support below the trading range. Remember, bull market overall, range acts like a magnet, right? You find support below the trading range, and then all you do is you wait for a breakout, right? You wait for that breakout, you get below the 21 moving average, trap those bears in, and use their stops as fuel for the reversal running higher, okay? Easy targets too. The amount below the range will be projected above the range, target off, half off, top of the range, leave that runner up to that pendulum swing. That'd be a great spot there for a pendulum, okay? So just be aware of that buy setup if we go sideways. Right now, it doesn't seem, as likely, but again, be prepared, right? Be prepared. Why wouldn't you want to be prepared? Now, one more thing I want to talk about here is oftentimes we get something like this. And I talked about this last night on the video, but I cover a lot on these videos, so I'll say it again. So if we're bullish and we go into a trading range, okay, what's a breakout look like? A breakout has to pop up, pull back, and jump right off that moving average. We call these 1, 2, 3 breakout patterns. We'll talk more about that tomorrow in our trade room. What I want you to be aware of, though, is sometimes if it goes above that trading range and buyers don't want to buy high anymore, what will happen is it will jackknife and run lower. Okay, we call this rotation off the high. Okay, it should be very clear that this is a very different momentum scenario than if all we did was stay in the range and go lower, right? If all we do is go lower below the trading range, this is still a pretty bull market, right? But if we go up and then fail and then run lower, what happens is that rotation off the high creates a lot of bearish momentum. A lot of times, these things can really push, okay? Why am I saying this right now? I'm saying this because a lot of times we'll get these head fakes after a really big move up like we've seen the last few days, and what they'll do is they'll race and run lower. If that happens, don't get too aggressive on the entry. This is where a 1 try and a 2 try failure will come in handy here. Okay, does that make sense? So if we bull trap off the high, okay, again, the amount above the range, the amount below the range, that will give you a general idea of where to look for the entry. But again, the sheer momentum coming off that high can oftentimes be very, very strong. And in those rotations examples, what I'll do is I'll wait for the bears to try twice, give them the benefit of the doubt, and then same thing, right? A 2 try failure and ripping it right back up into that trading range. All right, guys? So that's the way I'm looking at this. Again, anticipating some ranges, some consolidation here tomorrow ahead of that big earnings report tomorrow afternoon. All right, guys. Now, let's face it. I'm sure the markets are going to throw some sort of curveball tomorrow, right? I've covered a lot of my favorite setups I'm tracking for tomorrow. But, who knows, right? Big earnings report, big news, a big couple days of moves here. We may get something that we don't anticipate here tonight, and that's we have our trade room every morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We put the game plan together tonight on the video. Tomorrow, we'll trade the game plan together. I would love to have you there. If you're looking for a place to learn this stuff and trade along with us in a real fun environment, we have a lot of fun in our trade room. I'll put all the membership links. I'll put all the free trading class links. I'll put all the important stuff down in the description of the video. If you need help, please don't be afraid to call the office. If you need help getting access to anything we talked about here tonight, just pick up the phone and give us a call. Megan and I are always here to help out. And of course, we got live chat as well. So don't be a stranger. We're here to help if you need us. But in the meantime, get out of here. Enjoy your evening. Get a good night's sleep. The rest of the week should be a good one in our trade room. Hopefully, I'll see you sometime soon in the trade room, 8 o'clock Eastern time with our members. If not, though, same time, same place, tomorrow night. We're going to keep the good stuff coming this week. Guys, my name is Joseph. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching all the way to the end. Be well, be nice to each other, and be here next time. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.